That's right. Welcome in, welcome back, folks, to a Notre Dame's last Heisman Trophy winner has some harsh words for Tommy Boy on the way out edition of the Always Irish Show. Voice is struggling a little bit of a late night last night. Bear with me. Hit subscribe if you haven't. I appreciate it very much. And I'm sure you can imagine when I go out for the night, I talk a lot. It's just what tends to happen. Go figure everywhere I go, right? So bear with the voice. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. Appreciate it very much. Give the video a thumbs up. That helps me as well. Notifications on, you know why. That way you'll be alerted every time new episode drops. You don't want to miss it. Twitter, search bar Always Irish or at Always Irish Inc. Emails alwaysirishnc@gmail.com. Audio only anywhere you want me. You can locate me. Call in line 312-900-8815. Tell Johnny all you heard and seen. Fighting Irish Wire every day. Notre Dame articles written by yours truly and the rest of the team. We're going to go over something today that's in an article from Irish Wire. Hit it every morning as a part of your Google Notre Dame routine, folks. Let's get into this. This is supremely interesting to me. There's a lot to get into on this issue. So welcome in, everybody. I've been spending a lot of time talking and writing about us, the Notre Dame fans, Mr. Mrs. Notre Dame fan, and how we should and do feel about the Rees situation. Now, Timmy Brown has weighed in. And when I say Timmy, I don't mean that as disrespect, talking down to him like he's some little kid. When I say Timmy Brown, it is a nod and a throwback to Tony Roberts and his golden pipes and all those punt returns and everything. Timmy Brown with that grainy Notre Dame. I got goosebumps. Just even bringing up the name Tony Roberts is giving me goosebumps right now. Just that call, that boy, Timmy Brown. It's magic, all right? So Timmy Brown, Notre Dame's last Heisman winner, by the way, the best player in America in NFL all everything, has chimed in and he has a lot to say. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pull the tweets up on the screen. We're going to go over them and then we're going to respond to them. But not everybody, I got to do a better job of realizing not everybody who tunes into this show on YouTube is on Twitter, is in the Notre Dame Twitter circle. So not everybody sees everything. A lot of people who tune in here aren't in that big Twitter Notre Dame loop that some of us are. So I want to make sure everybody seeing this show sees what we're talking about online. So let's get into this and then we'll see where we're at. All right. So this is Tim Brown, ND football. This is a great day for Irish football, maybe even a better day for Tommy Rees. I've been around a lot of offenses, but the Irish offense last year, with maybe the exception North Carolina game, was extremely predictable. Seeing the offense struggle told me at least two things. One, Tommy was very dependent on Kelly, and more importantly, he didn't have the ability to dissect a defense. What we saw is what I call hero ball. You have one playmaker who's better than the guy guarding him, and you throw it to him a zillion times. Make him the hero. Mike Mayer, obviously. If that doesn't work, you lose. I was at a couple of games where it took everything in me not to go knock on the booth window and say, give me the call sheet. I truly wish him well. He's going to need it. Let's go Irish. Woo, baby. All right. So that's fairly strong stuff from a guy who's not usually this public with Notre Dame related stuff. Like, that tells me something too, because I don't see him involved in that mix every week giving Notre Dame opinions. So what do you make of this? What do you think of these tweets coming from, listen, is there anybody with the Notre Dame football opinion that has more credibility than our last Heisman winner? Like, let's just start with that. As far as credibility goes, I'm a guy in my basement yelling into a microphone. Tim Brown won the Heisman in Notre Dame and was a great NFL player. All right. Like, the credibility's there as far as Notre Dame credibility. Last guy to win a Heisman. Credible. All right. Been around a lot of winning high level football. Credibility. So here's my thoughts, though. I totally agree with his point about the offense and hero ball with Mayer 100%. I 100% agree with that sentiment. And I feel like that's how a lot of fans saw our offense. But at the same time, as much as I love Tim, some of this is an oversimplification. Yes, he's dead on right about the offense's limitations and predictability. But why was it that way? And whose fault is that? That's where this gets really, really tricky. I don't have a disagreement with anything he said about the offense. But where I have a cognitive disconnect is figuring out why was it that way and whose fault was it exactly. That's where this gets tricky. Was it Rees's fault? He was running the offense through Pine, who is supremely limited even on his best day of what they could run. Yes, kind of, no, kind of, maybe. Like, you could say, shouldn't they have other guys recruited and developed that their second guy is a better guy than Pine? More physically, like a bigger stature? Like, how do we end up in that place? Or is it like, well, he's the backup. You weren't planning on playing him and he got hurt. You got to work with what you're working with. How fair is it to nail Rees when he's working with the backup most of the year? How much of us having two wide receivers that were alive to start the year was Rees's fault? How much of this was a BK roster that was woefully recruited and underdeveloped? Like, these questions play into this. I can't just stop with these tweets that I totally agree with. You got to dig in more, though, and find the reasons. I don't think a lot of people are disagreeing with what Tim's saying the offense looked like and those frustrations. But that's not the end of it. Figuring out why and who to blame is the other part of this. That's where I have the issue. And I think this is the point where a lot of Notre Dame fans were at. Seeing the offensive talent rise dramatically from one calendar year to the next. Look at the position the quarterback room is in top to bottom now compared to a year ago. Look at the position the wide receiver room is going to be in the next year or two compared to a year ago. And I think that's where we had a lot of Notre Dame fans saying, all right, I don't like a lot of what I've seen, but maybe with all this better talent, Tommy's going to unleash what he really wants to do, not limited by Pine's inability and no receivers and everything else. Let's see what this all looks like with way better talent and stability and depth, right? And the thought was that would be exciting and something new, even though it was still Tommy if he was coming back. That was my thought. At least let's see it with this better talent, and maybe we'll see a different version of a Tommy Rees offense. And then we'll say, man, all it took was getting rid of all the Brian Kelly borderline criminal recruiting and development that went on. Or I should say lack of recruiting and development went on that was borderline criminal to me. Straight to jail, okay, with the way some of those position groups were being built out and not built out, right? So, like, I think a lot of people were excited to see maybe this will all look different with better talent and we won't have a lot of these Tommy Rees offensive complaints with it, right? But now that's not going to happen, so you're never going to get that answer. And if he lights it up all day at Alabama, it's not comparable to where I'm going to go, oh, well, that proves that it would have been good at Notre Dame this year, but he's doing it at Alabama. The talent difference is too raw and too big for me to make that conclusion if it goes well at Alabama. I can't make that conclusion No one is going to be able to tell me that if he does well at Alabama, that would have proven with better talent in Notre Dame for sure. It isn't going to be that amount of talent. It ain't. It's not. It's not. Don't argue that it is. So it's never going to be apples to apples. 9 5-stars to 0 the last class. It's just not apples to apples. 9 to 0. And we're the ones with the 0. Okay? So Tim's tweet, the tweet thread highlights what we've been saying, most of the fans from the beginning, about this offense and the way it looks and how you want to stab an ice pick through your cornea instead of watching it. But it doesn't end there. It's more complicated than that. It's one thing to identify a problem. It's another thing to identify the cause to the problems and then the solution to the problems. Okay? It just can't end where Tim left it. You got to ask more questions. Why was the offense so lame and predictable? Whose fault is that? And I can't break down a percentage of which to blame Rees for the offensive limitations last year. That is like the struggle. We're not behind the scenes. I don't know exactly how much of that to pin on Tommy or not. And that's a part of the uncomfortableness of how you're supposed to allegedly feel about all this. This is complicated in all ways. Practically, mentally, emotionally, it's complicated. And it's perfectly fine as a Notre Dame fan to have some mixed emotions here, not really know what the right lane of feelings is. It's totally fair to say that. This is very complicated. I'm not exactly sure 100% how I fall. That's totally fair. This is complicated. So this tweet thread's going to get a lot of play because of who it is. It's Timmy Brown, Notre Dame's last Heisman winner. His words carry weight, and they should. However, the tweet's a little oversimplistic because you got to start asking why it was that way. Whose fault is that? How much better was it going to be this year with better talent? Like, that's the more interesting part of the discussion than just saying what's pretty obvious. The offense was non-elite competitive is essentially it. So I don't know, you guys. This is a very complicated thing, and there's nothing wrong with saying I have some mixed emotions on a lot of this, and we're going to have to let it play out to see who the winner is, who's right and who's wrong. It's really possible everybody wins. Tommy goes and does a good job, raises his profile at the top spot. You could do it. And then Freeman could go run the program in his eyes, get a guy in here to look at the offense differently, and maybe we're in a better spot too. Everybody could win.